Hi guys, you might have heard the term cheat meal, refeed, or untracked meal in the past, and all three are different and are used for different purposes. And today we're going to be diving into why you might see them on your plan, what they mean, and what you should know about them. So, cheat meals, from a physiological standpoint, allowing yourself to indulge in your cravings is an essential part of both mental and emotional gratification. The more you try to suppress a thought, the more it comes to mind. And in relation to nutrition, the more we restrict certain food groups, the more we end up, or foods in general, the more we end up craving them. If you are feeling like you need a cheat meal or an all-out binge and you're not in contest prep, this could be something that you probably need to bring up with your coach. The issue with cheat meals is it feeds into this all or nothing mindset when it comes to our food. We don't want you, nor is it necessary, to restrict foods while practicing flexible dieting and tracking our macros. You guys know that's the philosophy we stand by within HOFit. If you are fitting your macros properly, you should be able to incorporate fun foods in moderation. You should not feel like you have to cheat. The word cheat has a negative connotation, and meal is a loosely defined term. For example, for some, a simple burger might be considered a cheat meal, but for others, it's burgers and fries and a shake and the extra sauces that go with it, and then they may continue grazing into the evening into their pantry. So it's a little bit different for everyone. When you've been restricting yourself for weeks on end, it gets harder to control your appetite in the moment. Oftentimes, once you've consumed cheat foods, you can easily coerce yourself into saying, well, why shouldn't I have one more? That all or nothing mentality is an easy and dangerous trap to fall into, and it doesn't create that sustainable habit formation that we're after. So many people who engage in cheat meals will allow their single cheat to kind of turn into a cheat day, which could then easily turn into a cheat weekend, and then you just kind of saying fuck the whole thing. So instead of engaging in cheat meals, HOFit really encourages you to navigate away from labeling things that you might consider cheat in moderation and just fit it into your macros. Overall, this can result in more motivation, better adherence, and most importantly, sustainability, as you will remove your dieter's mindset. This also allows for structure rather than a free-for-all. It teaches you how to have those healthy days that include more indulgent meals and steers you away from labeling foods as either good or bad. Again, feeding into that all or nothing mentality or mindset when it comes to your food. So that's cheat meals. Now we're going to talk about refeeds. So refeeds are a strategic increase in your calories to refuel the body after it's been depleted for a while. So you may find that your coach gives you refeeds, or they'll tell you, hey, go get a refeed, and they'll give you specific numbers. So we may incorporate refeeds if you've been following a super strict diet and you just need a little mental break. Maybe you're training super hard and you feel like you're consistently left with like no gas in the tank, or maybe you're struggling with recovery, we may throw in a refeed. Or if you're craving food all the time, or maybe you're staying really food focused, we may throw in a refeed. Or if you're just needing a little bit of a mental break, we could throw in a refeed. So refeed or refeeding boost the production of leptin in the body. So leptin is one of the hunger hormones that helps you regulate your metabolism. So this short boost of leptin can help your metabolism from down-regulating as quickly when implemented properly. So furthermore, refeeds increase your muscles' energy stores, glycogen, as opposed to fat stores. So the strategic increase of carbohydrates gives your body the fuel it needs to train harder so that you can get stronger and recover. Plus, it can sometimes give you that mental break from just the grind mentality, thus helping with adherence and motivation. So it's important to note that a refeed is not a cheat day. It is not a cheat day. Although some confuse the two, refeeds are strategically planned and directed by your coach. They're executed by increasing calories in the form of carbohydrates, typically. Refeeds differ from cheat days in that cheat days consist of over-consuming calories with little to no attention to what types of foods or the macronutrient ratios that you're consuming. Cheat days are also different in the sense that they're generally unplanned and untracked. Refeeds are planned, they're strategic, and they're typically planned around your most strenuous workouts or around specific periods of your dieting phase. So during a refeed, carbs are prioritized because they contain more leptin than fats. So your coach will oftentimes recommend you choose appropriate carbs to ensure that you're getting the full benefit of the refeed. Your coach is not going to recommend a refeed with limitless amounts of donuts and pizza and all of those things. Can you implement a few more flexible carbs and fun carbs in moderation? Absolutely. That's the fun of a refeed. But do we want to give you an extra 100 grams of carbs and you literally go spend them on candy? No, probably not. So we are going to just advise you to eat the foods that you've been typically eating. So on a refeed day, particularly if you're in a dieting phase, the most common want is to decrease the other macronutrients. So as your carbs come up, you may feel inclined to pull down your proteins and fats, but don't do that unless you are otherwise told to. You will simply be adding carbs to your meals. So avoid decreasing the other macronutrients to make sure that you aren't under consuming nutrient intake, calories in general, or impairing digestion. So refeeds can occur on different intervals of the dieting phase. So these can last for sometimes multiple days. So that would be called a consecutive day refeed or a diet break. If we get enough of them, it can just kind of be considered a diet break there. So we have a single refeed. So one day we have consecutive day refeed, which is like, 2, 3, 4, however many we need. And then we have a diet break, which is typically 5 or more days of consecutive day refeeds. That would be considered a diet break. So these are all different strategies that we can kind of deploy during a dieting phase to help the athletes, to help you guys with overall adherence, of course, recovery, energy, function, and sometimes just mental break and motivation. It's tough to provide specific numbers for a refeed, but just to give you an idea, if you exercise regularly and follow a low carbohydrate diet, maybe you're in a dieting phase, that's just what you're following at this moment. Implementing refeeds sometimes 1 to 2 times a week can really ramp up weight loss, believe it or not, and prevent you from plateauing. So this can be anywhere from like 100 to 200 grams plus. To be honest, I have refeeded people on like 50 grams of carbs. Then I've refed some of my peak week girls during contest prep with 300 grams of carbs. So there's a big variance here, but it's going to depend on you, the person. The leaner you get during a dieting phase, the more you're going to benefit from a longer or more aggressive refeed. So if you have a strenuous workout and you're looking for greater performance or endurance, maybe that has been suffering for a while, we may plan to refeed 100 or 200 grams of carbs. And typically that refeed, like from a caloric standpoint, is going to increase around 30%. But again, it just depends on the individual. So if any weight is kind of gained during a refeeding process, we have to understand that typically, carbs with carbohydrates, we get an influx of water. So with that water, it's typically going to be stored in our muscles if we're doing it the right way. And so don't be alarmed if you see the scale go up. It is probably going to be water, and it is stored in a good part of our muscle belly and not in our fat. And then when you're approaching your first refeed day, it's important to note the following. Avoid over-consuming fiber. This can impair digestion, so it's tempting to grab for foods like fruits and vegetables because those are, kind of scarce when it comes to a dieting phase, but that excess fiber can bring on some unwanted bloating and cramps. So just make sure that your food is digesting well and you're picking foods that, you're agreeing with. And then you will feel more energetic. So this increase in energy should last 2 to 3 days following your refeed. If for any reason you feel less energetic, speak to your coach because we may just need some more food next time. So next thing we're going to talk about is untracked meals. Tracking macros is not the devil. It's an incredible tool for achieving ideal body composition and for getting a better idea of how much you're actually consuming while allowing you to have the flexibility around your dietary choices. Having hard data on a weekly basis in regards to your intake and energy expenditure gives a great deal of information about how your intake is affecting your fat loss, your muscle gain, and your overall maintenance. Flexible dieting and tracking macros is a logical and practical way to go about achieving a specific look in a sustainable way. After tracking macros for some time, consistently weighing your food gram for gram, you may see the following begin to surface: an unhealthy dependence on MyFitnessPal or logging your food, a lack of confidence in your ability to make wise choices around food when you can't track it, weigh it, or cook it, and a decreased participation in social events and social isolation just because you're scared to go out and not be able to track these things. All of these are key drivers for an untracked meal. Even if you are not experiencing these unwanted repercussions of prolonged tracking, are we really teaching you anything about creating healthy habits if you can't make informed decisions independent of your tracking app or food scale? So this goes back to what we've talked about in the Macros 101 guide and some of our other macro guides that we have for you guys. Tracking macros is an incredible tool to learn what's in your food, but it should be just a tool in teaching you how to eat, how to distribute your protein, how you feel and function and perform on X amount of food. It is not the end all be all. So try to zoom out a little bit. And yes, tracking macros, hitting macros, within variance is important. But if you are getting so caught up in hitting every single macro to the gram every single day, we have missed the point. So you might want to incorporate some untracked meals if you are someone who is seasoned macro tracker and you have that solid foundation of knowledge of foods and what your macronutrients contain. If you are someone who is frequently attending social outings or business trips, or on the onset of your health and fitness journey, you were skeptical or doubtful about your ability to track macros 7 days a week, might be a good idea to throw in an untracked meal or a free meal. Have a date night or an anniversary or a special occasion where you don't necessarily need to track your food or your numbers that day. Might be a great time to throw in an untracked meal. Incorporating an untracked meal gives your coach and you a good idea of what your food choices are without a macronutrient target. It also gives you an idea of your degree of comfort in regards to your own decision making without the crutch of an app, and then how your body responds, energy levels, performance, digestion, etc., to foods outside of your norm. Untracked meals are a great opportunity for you to implement structured flexibility into your life as we test the waters of your nutritional independence. With Team HOFit, we desire each and every one of our clients to graduate from us feeling as though they've learned how to live this healthy lifestyle without the reins of their 3 numbers. Learning to balance treats and social events and moderation is equally as important as the knowledge gained from tracking consistently. Once this balance is struck, you are in a much better position for lifelong success. Untracked meals can be a huge relief for many of our clients, especially if they're implemented during a social event where you might not want to have been consumed by logging your meal. Providing you with an opportunity to enjoy a meal to satiety can alleviate the food-focused feelings. So when you are given an untracked meal, consider the following. It's an opportunity for you to consume a meal that you wouldn't otherwise have, so maybe take advantage of this. Be wary and communicative with your coach if you are concerned that it might lead to a binge or a free-for-all. Your coach should be able to direct you here on making some suggestions or just giving you various tips about binging in general. We definitely don't want to fall into this trap of binge restrict. It just feeds into that all or nothing mindset, and that's really what we're trying to get away from. So truly, if you feel like an untracked meal or not seeing the numbers is going to send you into a bit of a spiral, it just may not be time to implement that right now, and that's okay too. Untracked meals are not an opportunity to negate all the healthy habits that you've established so far. The purpose of an untracked meal is to still be able to engage in those habits. The only difference is that you won't have a food scale or a tracking app in front of you. And then you can choose to eat the exact same meals and the exact same foods that you've been eating. While you may think that this meal has to be tied to a social event or an outing, it absolutely does not have to be. And then don't discredit the knowledge you have pertained to macronutrients. You know what food sources contain what macronutrients and the various ratios within each, or you should be getting more comfortable with it if you are not already. So trust your judgment and eat like a person who prioritizes their health. So if you guys have any questions on why we implement these 3 or when it's appropriate to implement them for you specifically, refer to your coach. Your coach should implement these whenever they feel necessary, if they even feel necessary to do so. Most of the time, if flexible dieting and tracking macros is done right, we shouldn't feel too deprived or like we need to have a free-for-all or a cheat meal or anything like that. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. But outside of that, happy cheat refeeds and untracked meals.